Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Corruption, Crime, and Compliance. I'm Michael Volkov, and today we're going to talk about an issue that I thought we had put to bed years ago, and it's back and it's moving in the wrong direction. And what I'm talking about is, who does your chief compliance officer report to? And here's what I'm seeing in the market after years of progress, and this goes back 20 years or so, this issue. Companies elevated the CCO to report directly to the CEO, giving compliance a genuine seat at the leadership table, and also giving the CCO a line of sight across the organization. But there's a quiet backslide underway. At least this is the impression I'm getting, as companies are moving more compliance or chief compliance officers and staff back under a reporting relationship to the general counsel. Now, I'm not condemning that as a matter of course, because I've seen general counsels and CCOs with great relationships and they work very well. On the other hand, structurally, I think it sends a message, and the wrong message perhaps, to the organization that the CCO and compliance isn't as important, isn't necessary to be independent, and isn't necessary to be a member of the C-suite. Those are not good messages. So it's happening incrementally, and it's usually justified as cost discipline or organizational simplification. And boards are signing off without understanding what they're giving up. So let me say this as plainly as I can. Where your CCO reports is not an org chart technicality. It's the single clearest signal your company sends to regulators, to employees, and frankly, to itself about what compliance means inside your organization. So why is this so important, and why is the CEO reporting line so important in this equation? A CCO who reports to the CEO sits at the leadership table. He or she hears business strategy as it's being formed, not after the decisions are made. Think about what that means in practice. New market entry, acquisition, new third-party distribution model. When compliance is in the room at the design stage or the decision stage, risk gets mitigated when it's cheap and easy. You can be proactive. When compliance is buried 2 or 3 layers down inside the legal department, the CCO hears about the deal when the documents show up for review or at some later, earlier stage, but still too late. The strategic choices have already been made. Compliance becomes a cleanup function. And folks, that's not a compliance program. That's a compliance afterthought. Second important reason, independence. When serious allegations surface, and especially when those allegations touch senior management, the CCO needs the independence to investigate, to escalate, and to deliver unwelcome news to the board without fearing for his or her job. The structure that protects that independence is a direct line to the CEO paired with a dotted line to the audit committee. And I want to emphasize that dotted line because it's the piece companies skip. It means regularly scheduled executive sessions with the audit committee and ongoing communications, often informally, with the audit chair. Management is not in the room in those, we're not part of those conversations. It means escalation authority that no executive can block. It's the board's unfiltered channel into culture, misconduct trends, and speak up activity. If you don't have that in your committee charter in writing, you don't really have it. And third, the message your companies or your employees hear. Employees are sensitive and astute observers of organizational signals. When the CCO stands shoulder to shoulder with the CFO and the general counsel as a direct report to the CEO, employees understand that ethics and compliance are core to how the company does business. When compliance is a subsidiary office inside legal, employees draw the opposite conclusion. Compliance is a technical specialty, somebody else's job, a box to check. Culture follows structure. It always has. Now let's talk about the backside itself, because I want to be fair about this. I have enormous respect for general counsels, and legal and compliance have to work hand in glove. And like I said earlier, they have, in many cases, a great working relationship, but in some cases they don't. So they're fundamentally different jobs. The general counsel advises on what the law permits and defends the company when challenged. It's an advocacy role oriented around legal risk and minimum legal requirements. The CCO's job is broader and more proactive and different, building an ethical culture, preventing and detecting misconduct, embedding integrity into how the business actually operates. A great compliance program doesn't ask, is this legal? It asks, is this right? Is this consistent with our values? Is this sustainable? When compliance reports to legal, the legal mindset wins. Compliance priorities get filtered through litigation exposure. The program drifts toward doing what the law minimally requires, mere compliance, instead of setting higher standards that build trust with customers, employees, business partners, and regulators. And what about the economic excuse? Tighter budgets, leaner structures, consolidating overhead. I understand the pressure, but the premise is wrong. Compliance is not a cost center. Compliance is not overhead. Companies with strong ethical cultures outperform on retention, on customer trust, on long-term value, and they avoid the catastrophic costs of enforcement actions and even monitorships. Demoting your CCO to save a line item is like canceling your insurance to improve quarterly cash flow. It works right up until it doesn't. One more point. Regulators are watching this. Prosecutors evaluating a compliance program ask pointed questions about the CCO's stature, autonomy, resources, and access to the board. A company that can't demonstrate genuine CCO empowerment starts that conversation at a disadvantage. And no policy manual papers over an org chart that tells a different story. So what should you do? 4 quick action items. First, if your organization is considering moving compliance under legal, insist that the board, not management alone, evaluate and improve that change. Second, whatever your structure, guarantee a formal dotted line from the CCO to the audit committee, memorialized in the charter with executive sessions and unrestricted escalation rights. Third, document the CCO's investigation authority, budget autonomy, and protection from retaliation. And fourth, ask yourself the hard question. Does your structure treat compliance as a driver of business success or a cost of doing business? Trust me, your employees already know the answer. Thanks again, everybody. And thanks again for joining me today. Join us for another episode of Corruption, Crime, and Compliance coming shortly.